On the restaurant list Razor page, in order to show the restaurant data, we're going to need access to the in-memory restaurant data class that we just created. However, I don't want to write code inside of the Razor page that instantiates this class directly. Instead, I want to program to an interface, which is iRestaurantData. This is going to allow me to swap out the data source later in this course, and we'll move over to using SQL Server seamlessly. ASP.NET Core is going to help me out here because ASP.NET Core follows the dependency inversion principle. All I need to do is tell the framework that whenever a component like a Razor page needs something that implements iRestaurantData, it should provide that component with in-memory restaurant data specifically. To tell the framework about this, I need to go into the startup.cs file. So this is a bit of code that we'll cover later in the course that executes when the web application is first starting. And one of the methods that is in here is the method configure services. This is a method that ASP.NET Core will invoke to say, tell me about all these services and components that you need. Tell me about your iRestaurantData and what should implement that interface. So it's inside of here where I want to walk up to this service collection, and I want to say that I want to add a singleton. You might be familiar with the singleton design pattern. It means I want a single instance of a specific service for the entire application. This is never something that you'd really want to do with in-memory restaurant data because behind the scenes, in-memory restaurant data relied on a single list of restaurants. And if we were to use a singleton instance of this class in production or with real users, we're guaranteed to have data corruption or an exception because a list is not thread safe. It's not going to be able to process multiple requests. So what I'm doing right now is just for development, but I'm going to say add a singleton instance whenever someone needs iRestaurantData, then please provide the following component. But before I can do that, I'm going to need to add a reference from ode to food to ode to food.data. So I've now established a project reference from the web app to the data class library. And now I should also be able to say, please provide an in-memory restaurant data instance. I'm going to do this as a singleton so that later when we start making data changes, everyone's going to see the same set of restaurants. But like I say, you only want to do this for development and test, and later in the course, we're going to swap out the implementation to work against a real database. But for right now, with the service registered, over in my Razor page, which was pages, restaurants, list.cshtml, I want to go to the page model. And now, in addition to asking for iConfiguration in the constructor, since ASP.NET Core also knows about iRestaurantData, I should be able to ask for an instance of something that implements iRestaurantData. I do need to bring in the namespace odefood.data. Well, let's call this restaurant data. I'm going to use control period to create and initialize a field and save that value off. My Razor page now has access to a service or a component that knows how to fetch the restaurants. So the next step will be to fetch the restaurants and put them on the screen.